Jesus Christ was a person. God may just be a power to me.
I doubt the existence of a God. I believe in a natural force that guides the universe, but not in a limitless being that controls everything.
I don't know if God's real.
God is definitely real. God is something that I think everybody should believe in.
Yes, God is real.
For me, there's no God, but I think it's probably very real for some people, and they have very real actions as a result of that.
There's definitely something else out there, for sure.
All right, we are going to be starting a series today. It is off this book, The God Questions. We'll be doing this study through Lent. They've already told you the books are for sale for $10. You can buy one as you're leaving. The book has a small reading for every day through Lent. So you'll be able to read every day in this. And this book was written by Hal Seed, who is a pastor. I am not telling you are going to agree with everything in this book. That's okay. One of the reasons I chose this is because the way he approaches it as if he's talking to somebody who is a non-Christian. And I kind of like that perspective, and so then we will bring our own Christian perspective to that, and that's what I think will happen in the Bible studies as we talk about the questions. And sometimes it's just fun to talk about things that you may not have perfect answers to, and that you can agree or disagree with somebody on the other side of the room, and yet you can still be friends with one another. I think that's a skill we have to learn in our society today. So who but the church to help teach that? And so I do hope you'll participate. For those of you who will be participating during the Sunday school hour, there will be a video that will be shown each time before the lesson. Because we have different Sunday school classes that are doing it, the video will be shown in the chapel. If you are not part of a Sunday school class, you can still participate. You can walk into any of the Sunday school classes. If you're not sure where they meet, just head to the chapel, watch the video, and just follow somebody. Hopefully they know where they're going, and you will end up in their room. So just simply be aware this is happening. For those that can't stay for Sunday school class, we will also be offering it at 4 o'clock in the afternoon down in, right now, 136, unless we find out we have a whole bunch of people, and then we'll move it somewhere else. So 136 is in the other part of the building. So it's just going to be fun. The author of the book, Hal Seed, has done all sorts of questionnaires asking people, what are your questions about God? And the book is in reference to the top 6. They are, is God real? Is the Bible true? Don't all roads lead to heaven? How can a good God allow suffering? Which is right, evolution or creation? That'll be a fun one. And then what happens when I die? Those are questions that people have. And those are the things that the book will talk about. I'm not saying the book is fully going to answer those. It simply enlightens and allows us to have conversation around those things. So please be aware of that. And if you're already thinking, I don't really do studies, change your mind. This is one that you will want to participate in and want to learn through. So it is only 6 weeks. You can handle 6 weeks. And if you can't, well, just show up to 5. That'll work too. Okay, so we're going to be covering these questions. I invite you to participate. We're going to start investigating by looking back 3,000 years. Now, I realize that Steve already has a lot of the verses that go along with this, but I've already told him, Steve, don't worry about following along. So if it doesn't happen, don't worry about it, because some of them are going to come kind of quick. Everything that I share with you today is from the book, because sometimes we're going to go, what is she talking about? Because I had to read it through 3 times to figure it out myself. So if you hear it once, you're like, what was that? How is that? It is in the book. You will want to buy it and then go to the study. All right, here we go. Psalm 19. Psalm 19 is a poem. It is a song lyric written by King David, who was king of Israel around 1000 BC. Now, some of you are thinking, oh, before Christ. No, actually, BC means before the Common Era. And you'll learn more about that from a different book. But anyways, 1,000 years ago, he was a victorious general and a king who led his country to economic prosperity, geographic expansion, and nationwide unity. Gosh, what would that be like to have unity in an entire nation? I can't imagine. He moved his country from the Stone Age to the Bronze Age. Sometimes we don't think about that happened while he was king. And he was an inventor, and in lots of ways he was a man's man, even though he played instruments as well. As David reflected on the universe and the existence of God, he began with this statement, and this comes from Psalm 19. The heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of his hands. That's Psalm 19:1. David continues on the same thread with the following verses in 2 through 4, and he writes, day after day they pour forth speech. Night after night they reveal knowledge. They have no speech. They use no words. No sound is heard from them. Yet their voice goes out into all of the earth, their words to the ends of the world. You know what he's talking about? The stars. The stars in the sky. The stars in the sky already direct us to the awesomeness of who God is. Day and night, the sun and its daily consistency and the heat it provides to the world, it all points to who God is. The whole creation, the beautiful, masterful universe screams of God's existence. I want you to think about a time when you saw the beauty of God. Can you think of a time like that? Maybe it was the mountains, maybe it was the oceans, maybe it was the beauty of the sky. Maybe you were out camping. Maybe you came upon the Grand Canyon. Whatever it was, I want you to think about that. It was a breathtaking moment. It was a moment that God created just for you, to help you to realize just how incredible and wonderful God is, and to know that there is a God. I will never forget a moment when I was a young kid in elementary school. It was early spring. School was still happening. My dad was up. He was dressed in a suit. He had his tie on. He went outside on our back porch, outside, I guess patio really, to have his cigarette and to have his coffee, because that's what he did every morning. And he had azalea bushes out there, and the azaleas were just getting ready to pop out. And I remember my dad, cigarette in one hand, coffee in the other, looking at the azalea bushes and all the beauty that was in the yard. We had crabapple trees and all sorts of things in our backyard. And I remember, this is what I remember. I remember him taking his cup, and here I am, and I remember him going, look at all of the beauty that is around us. And I thought, yeah? And he goes, how can anyone not know that there is a God? I still remember that. As a small girl, my dad doing that. And then, of course, he took a big piff out of his cigarette. I remember that, too. But the beauty that was all around us points to who God is. Because there is a God. The problem is, there is a point to truly believe that there is a God that one also requires faith. Hebrews 11:1 says, now faith is confidence in what we hope for and the assurance about what we do not see. Believing in a God that we cannot see physically, but we can see his masterful creation. Now, for some of you, you're going to think, well, faith is kind of weak, isn't it? But here's what I want you to remember. I want you to remember that all the time you are using faith. On a daily basis, you are using faith. You put money in the stock market. Oh, that's a faith. You took a job with a company in the faith that they're going to pay you probably roughly twice a month. You get married. That's an act of faith. Believing that you're going to live in a committed relationship for a very, very long time. And you got up this morning having faith that there'd be enough oxygen for everyone to breathe, and that you were going to make it through the day. And even when you walked in here this morning, you didn't realize it, but there was an act of faith. You took a seat in that chair, believing by faith that that chair would hold you. What if I told you there's one in here that's broken? It's not going to hold anyone. That's not true. They're all okay. You can trust every chair in the room. But they're all matters of faith. We live by faith every day on all of these little things. And yet, faith is what is required to also believe that there is a God. But that doesn't mean that you have to go blindly. You ever heard a blind faith? That's not the type of faith that we're talking about when we believe in God. Because you see, we invest in the market after reading a company's, prospects. We accept the job after investigating and looking at who the boss is, at least hopefully. We get married after getting to know the person and meeting his or her family, and sometimes you still went ahead and got married. We believe there will be enough oxygen, and we also believe because more than likely before you sat in that chair, you put your hand on the back of it just to make sure that it was solid as you once thought it to be. And it held you last week, right? So why wouldn't you hold you this week? Our faith is based on reason, using our brain. It's based on facts. It's based on our experience of what we have. And that's how we come to faith in God as well. You see, God set it up that way. God has made a world of vast and complete logical and scientific structure. And he's made creation so beautiful and masterful that merely looking at the stars can make you wonder at who this God is and how great he is. The heavens declare the glory of the Lord. They are telling you and I that God is real. Creation is one of our first evidences of the existence of God. So, for those of you who came in today curious about this existence, or for those of you who've been asking the questions by coworkers or whatever, take some notes on this, but you don't have to because it'll all be in the book. Today we're going to focus on 2 of 5 classical arguments for the existence of God. They'll all be in here. And what philosophers have propositionally and logically argued for creation. I'm going to take us down to the teleological argument, or the existence of stuff. That's an easier way to say it, isn't it? The existence of stuff. You see, stuff exists. Oh yeah, some of you got a lot of stuff, don't you? You know that stuff exists. So stuff exists, which means there creates a huge problem for the atheist. Because if nothing exists, then you don't have to explain it. There's nothing there, nothing to explain. But the minute we acknowledge that something is real, we have to come up with an explanation of how it got there. You see, the universe exists. It's real. You and I, we live in it. We see it, we hear it, we feel it, we breathe in its air. Where did all this stuff we feel, hear, breathe, and smell come from? Well, let's try and use logic. The law of cause and effect teaches us that for every effect, there has to be a cause. That makes sense, right? Cause and effect. For every effect, everything that exists, there has to be something that caused it to exist. That's the teleological argument philosophers have upheld for years. If there's stuff, something created the stuff. How do you explain that? There's also the cosmological argument, or the nature of stuff. This is also called the argument from continuancy. The universe is a huge, complex, marvelous, well-ordered place. Since it exists, you have to explain where it came from. It had to come from somewhere. Now, there is one possible explanation on how something got here, is that it was self-created. Oh yeah, this is a good one. It came from itself. But you see, that doesn't follow logically. You know why? Because scientists who study this sort of thing tell us just about everything in the universe is contingent. Contingent on something. It's dependent on something. Everything. It's contingent even on something in order for it to exist. Let's take something simple. Let's take a tree. We all have trees, right? We can all be tree huggers for the moment. So, trees need air to breathe, to exist, to survive. Air to have been created in the first place. You can't have a tree without air. Trees are contingent on air. Are you following me? I told you this gets kind of whirl. Get the book. Okay, let me try a different one. Kansas City Chiefs. I think you've heard of them. The ones that are going to win the Super Bowl later this afternoon. You got to go on faith sometimes. So, the Chiefs need players to exist. They need a league to play in and an owner to pay them. Pretty well, by the way. And they also need raving fans who will cheer them on even when Taylor Swift is not in attendance. The Chiefs are contingent. They only can be because of other things that already are. They are contingent. Are you following me? I know there's another team playing this afternoon, but I don't know. They're way out there, meaning west. Nothing we observe around us is self-caused or self-reliant. Nothing, not even you. In fact, it's easy to conclude that everything we see around us did not exist at one time. Now it exists, and it probably will not exist forever. Not even us. So, if everything we observe is dependent on something else and not independent or self-caused, the principle of dependency asks, if all that exists is dependent, fragile, and temporary, who or what is responsible for all this dependent objects and being? How did they get here? Who created them? If we're all dependent on something in order to exist, what do we do with all of this stuff? Philosophers go through all sorts of mental gymnastics to try to answer this question, but let's look at it from a different perspective. All right, you're going to have to use your mind for this one. In your mind, get away, I mean way from the universe. Zoom out from it. And then take everything in the universe and draw a circle around it. So picture a hula hoop. Probably you've all know what a hula hoop is. Take a hula hoop and put everything in the entire universe, shrink it down so it all fits inside that hula hoop. Everything that has been created fits inside the entire cosmos in that hula hoop. I mean galaxies, solar system, planets, black holes. Put it all in the hula hoop. The universe, the stars, the planets, our world, all of us included in that circle. Everything inside that circle is dependent. Everything. It relies on something besides itself for existence. According to the second law of thermodynamics, known as the law of entropy, it's slowly headed towards non-existence. Everything in that hula hoop. So, not only does it need something or someone in order to exist, but also it will at some point stop existing. Kind of scary to think about. So the big question is, where might the thing that caused all of this in the hula hoop, that is dependent stuff, to exist in the first place, where is that located? Where is that located? Is it inside the circle, inside the hula hoop, or outside of it? Which explanation makes the most sense? If everything that exists inside that circle is fragile, temporary, and dependent, how likely is it that the cause of all of these things in the hula hoop originated inside that circle of contingency? Am I losing you yet? Doesn't a thinking person have to conclude that everything that exists inside that hula hoop exists because of something outside the circle? Something outside that circle. And by contrast, whatever is outside the circle must be independent, self-caused, and self-reliant, which would make it eternal, with no ending or beginning, unlimited, and all-powerful. Which is why part of the Bible says in Psalm 19:1, the heavens declare the glory of God, the skies proclaim the work of his hands. It took somebody outside that everything on the inside is dependent upon. You see what God is saying here, that the things that I created and hold together every second of the day are to point you to me, meaning God. You can see my existence all over the universe. All right, that was kind of big. Let's try and make this a little smaller. Here we go. A well-hidden Coca-Cola can. Most of you probably have drunk Coca-Cola at some point in your life, right? All right, so instead of looking at the entire universe, let's just look at one little can of Coca-Cola. Or make it your favorite beverage, whatever that might be. Have you ever wondered how this can of Coca-Cola got to be the way it is? You probably never thought about that, have you? Where it came from? How it was formed? Let me tell you about it. Millennia ago, a massive explosion came out of nothing and nowhere and sent a gargantuan rock spinning through space. As it cooled, a brown, sweet, bubbly liquid formed on its surface. As time passed, aluminum crept out of the water and shaped itself into these dimensions, which happened to be just the right shape to fit a human hand, which would develop a few million years later. Over time, this thing formed itself into a one-time retractable lid with a crease started to appear just a bit off center at the top of the lid. And out of it grew a pull tab. Centuries later, red and white paint fell from the sky and clinged to this thing, forming the letters C-O-L-A on its surface. Wow, isn't that amazing? Obviously, these letters have a deeper meaning to them because they seem to be everywhere. In fact, when you think about it, you'll realize that this logo is one of the primordial resonance frequencies of the universe. After all, it is everywhere. And some have even described the situation as the joy of cola. Others have called it the choice of a new generation. But it's been around for ages. The really cool part is that the primordial force that generated this pattern even thought to put a little trademark symbol right next to it. Here's the question. How many scientific explanations about the nature of matter and the origins of the universe would I have to give you to convince you that this happened by chance? What are the odds that something this complex and this coincidentally useful, comfortable, attractive, and I might add delicious, came about as a result of a random collision of molecules? It's too carefully designed to be by chance or coincidence. Wouldn't you agree? And this is just a Coca-Cola can. Do you really believe that about the earth? About the cosmos? Now, we realize that there will always be skeptics who have their own ideas concerning God and will read the evidence accordingly. We can't stop that. There's always that matter of faith. And there will be some whom no amount of proof will convince them. It'll all come down to faith. So what about you? Do you believe there is a God? And as we prepare for our closing, why do you believe? There's a whole lot of other reasons why. But when it comes to the question of, is there a God? Oh, the answer is yes. But for each one of us, what really matters is, why is it yes for you? Amen.